I'm Jonathan Funk. You're watching The Run, BEN's panel covering the 2016 presidential race. Today's panel, from right to left. Next up, the boom times are back on Wall Street. Did we learn nothing from the crisis, or is it okay because this is not your father's cashmobile? The Patriot Act getting trimmed back here in the U.S., but is it just catching on in Europe? We'll check in on the surprising appeal to Big Brother, now underway in France, when we come back. No more grenade launchers for the Mayberry Police Department. That's the word from President Obama, who says that military equipment can alienate and intimidate rather than protect and serve. Vote for it.
Why is Bernie Sanders crazy but Rand Paul isn't?
Well, now, hold on. Heather, you did refer to him as fringe.
Well, he is from, listen, he's like Howard Dean was. He's from the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party.
Regardless of what happens to the stock price, while revenues increase, while units shipped increase, while synergies are achieved from a merger, this is exactly the sort of person we want.
Oh yeah, it's better than nothing.
He's been consistently conservative enough for you to hate him on the social issues and consistently pragmatic enough, as all governors claim to be, to actually get down to the business of governing when that's in a party. It sounds like you're a perfect guy.
I
just
think
hate him for the next 8 years
I think
and love him. What do you think, Todd? Fiscal conservative, or was that $1.3 billion on biotech better spent on high-speed rail?
Oh God. No, it shouldn't be spent on either.
He also lied about how his family came to this country. He said that they fled from Castro, and that absolutely was not true.
In 1956.
Yeah. So he's an opportunist.
They pre-fled.
Yeah, they pre-fled. They saw it coming.
Anything else on ethics? Anything else he has to answer for? He's only 12 years old. What could he really have done? Well, Todd, what do you think? The worst combination of social conservatism and spendthrift policy?
That is precisely what I think.
Don't know how I called that.
He's also a bit of a martinette. I mean, I think he has no chance in the general because no one has gone after him yet.
A martinet, is that with a capital M?
Yes, it is. He loves the sound of his own voice.
That's anyone who's ever campaigned for the presidency.
Well, no, they're not. You mean on the right? Not necessarily.
Hillary Clinton is very fond of her own
She's not authoritarian. Oh, I don't know that she's very fond of her own voice. I really don't.
Not nearly enough.
I think it's very different.
This was supposed to be the doomsday device, the sequester. Instead, what has happened is no one's even noticed a difference. Todd, are you happy with the sequester?
Oh, yeah. If I could vote for the sequester for president, I would do it. I mean,
if you were investing for your own retirement, no matter how much you love the oil sector, you would never put 100% or even 50% of your stocks in the oil sector. You'd diversify. Why shouldn't the country do exactly that with something as important as our energy supply?
Well, I mean, if you were picking, you'd want to diversify, but you also look for yield. And the fact is that oil is the most sort of energy-intensive, cheapest fuel out there for most purposes for which we need it. And so it makes sense to stick to that for now. Is that ideal? Not necessarily.
What has he learned?
What has he learned?
What has he learned, or what has he forgotten? Something has clearly changed. Is it just the act of being president for 8 years?
I think that we know that he's now a lame duck, right? So as soon as the 2012 election was over, he started doing a lot of things that many of us on the left wish he had done much sooner.
You were just talking about is that system, you're calling it a system where there's a traffic stop for a taillight that's out, and that leads to a fine, and that leads to a court appearance that is missed, which leads to another fine, which then leads to a bench warrant. Is that the kind of
That's what I mean. And not
only
only does it impoverish that individual, but it can also ruin that person's life.
These notions that we don't have a strong border on the South, and it's always the Mexicans. It's not anybody else in the world. So I think she's absolutely believes what she says.
Did she believe what she said a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, when she said that that illegal immigrants should not have driver's licenses? And last summer, when
she first said they should. She supported it when she was a senator in New York State.
So she twice.
We are still seeing slave labor. We're still seeing child labor. We're still seeing the murder of union organizers. This is not
105 in Guatemala.
105 in Guatemala.
Okay, so what's the solution? Don't engage? Aren't you tilting at windmills? You say that if you don't want a service, it goes to your spam folder. But Palantir and other companies have a dossier on you somewhere. Isn't this just the world we live in as a function of technology, a necessary outcome of the way that? How do you put the genie back in the bottle?
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is because, I mean, one is sunlight. It always is the strongest disinfectant. You know, at state level, it happens all the time.
The president has said there will be such a time. That time is not now.
No, he's saying the time will be after he's been given fast-track authority. The vote is not happening now on the actual agreement. The vote that's being taken is to let Obama single-handedly go out and negotiate it. And I feel like...
But didn't you just say that you didn't want everybody to be at the table? This isn't about
No, I think that people should be able to comment about what it is that's in there and be able to say, hey, while you're out there negotiating, these are the things that must absolutely be in there.
As soon as they read it, the special interests jump in from all 12 countries and tear it apart. It doesn't happen.
They're already in it.
Right?
Elizabeth Warren is already in it. Sherrod Brown
But you're
is
saying
already
from
in
all
it.
12
Everybody's already
countries,
in it.
For years, he goes around talking like a free marketeer, and then you're unchristian if you oppose him and Obama.
You can't believe in free markets and Christ?
You certainly can.
Nike's promised a lot of jobs. Do these jobs ever actually materialize, and can you even tell?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
10,000 is nothing.
Okay, so that's a tactical error you're calling him on before he's made it.
Yes.
And the balanced budget, that you don't give him any credit for that, states have to balance their budgets.
Well, yes.
Okay, the budget's surplus, no credit for that.
Not much. I mean, if you did it partly through taxes, then no. Even if you try to outlaw something like children in sweatshops, you end up with increases in child prostitution.
Open a sweatshop, save a girl from slavery?
Ridiculous. It's rare that I disagree with something 100%, but I do.
We're pushing everybody to have cards in their hands that say they're enrolled in Medicaid. Terrific. They go to find a doctor. Last December, HHS found that 50% of doctors listed were not available. Either they were not taking new patients through Medicaid, or they'd moved their offices, or they'd died. I mean, isn't the solution, doesn't it have to be to put more money into the Medicaid system to increase reimbursement rates? And isn't that going to bring us right back to where we were before all this cost saving under Medicaid began?
Let's be clear about what this Medicaid expansion went to. It went to people who are making less than about $14,000, less than that a year. This is a huge leap forward for our society.
What do you think, Anders?
Obamacare saved Kentucky hospitals over $1 billion in uncompensated costs.
And how's your favorite Kentuckian, Rand Paul, feel about this?
Oh, of course, he wants government out of healthcare altogether.
They're saving too much money?
You know, healthcare costs started skyrocketing basically in the mid-20th century as soon as government got heavily involved in subsidizing it.
Well, people also started getting health care. There's that.
Right.
What about as a process question, though? I mean, to Todd's point, is insurance the best way to do this? I mean, think about the way that Obamacare is funded with this 3.8% surcharge on certain financial transactions. And think about the kabuki of it all. I mean, you charge somebody 3.8% who has a portfolio. That money goes to Washington. It comes back to a state program, which then goes to a for-profit insurer, a managed care provider, so that somebody who doesn't have a portfolio on the other side of town can finally get a card that they may not be able to. I mean,
but isn't a universal single-payer system so much easier?
Well,
it's much simpler.
What about that, Todd? If we want to cover, don't we want people to get health care? Never mind the coverage or the mechanism. Don't we want people to have health care in this country?
We want them to have health care. That doesn't necessarily mean we want them to have the existing health care structures expanded.
How palatable would the compromise be politically, especially in the general election, to have a much more liberal immigration policy coupled with, for the first time ever, a declaration of English as the national language?
I think that that's a big mistake, declaring English as the national language.
In concert with
I think it makes no sense.
Reform.
What's the point? Who cares? I mean, because white people want to hang on to the Anglo-Saxon culture. It's the only reason that people clamor for English as the national language.
So you would reject that compromise?
I reject it.
If kids are taught in Spanish, they're less likely to economically flourish and merge with the rest of the society.
It depends on the subject. That if kids are allowed to take math and science in their native language first, they will do much better.
But there are two different subjects. The first is how easily do you learn, and clearly you learn most readily in your native tongue. But then secondly, how do you integrate with society? And there,
but bilingual education has been mischaracterized. No one who supports bilingual education is supporting it for every class and across the board. They are supporting the limited use of testing and instruction in math and science. Especially because these are the areas where we really are falling way behind on a global scale.
So bilingual education is a means to an end, and the end still is integration into the greater society.
Yes,
both
and
economically
fluency in English and being able to, because it drives me nuts when I encounter people on the phone that can't really speak English very well.
Sure, drives them nuts too.
Yeah, well, it probably does.
So you support English as sort of the lingua franca, had to say it,
yeah,
in the United
but
States.
Not national, but not as national
But not as
language.
a matter of law. Just
right, not as a matter of law.
In our hearts, not in our laws. Yes. Do we have consensus around this table that nuclear power is zero emissions and therefore good for the climate, can be mitigated on the risk side through better technology, which is available and emerging, and simply needs to be financed through a more coherent and centralized mechanism?
I don't know.
Does anyone disagree with that
I don't
summary?
know that
So do Melody and Todd agree that you don't like Lindsey Graham because he's not quite consistently conservative enough for you to hate him?
I think, yes, probably. That's a good way to phrase it.
We have an emerging consensus then. The less you know about government, the better you're going to be at government. We'll be right back. Wow, a lot of idiots running for president. That seems to be the emerging consensus. Any disagreement about it?
You heard it here first.
You really have to come over to this side of the table.
We were actually debating the merits of a Marco Rubio proposal that no one else is taking seriously. When they sell or when they buy?
Either one. I mean, you can make a law that taxes these guys for leaving properties vacant in Manhattan.
We're inventing new parts of the real estate tax code, and it just might work.
Everything that Andrew says is so wrong in so many ways, and I'll try to enumerate, but I don't really have the time.
Yeah,
worked in London and Canada, right?
The Soviet Union, really, shame on you.
We are not giving them the nuclear codes. This is trade.
Any industry. I mean, you can say something about, should we shut down the financial industry because we haven't figured out what caused the financial crisis?
We do know what caused
all the banks.
We do know what caused
You're asking the wrong person that question.
I think it's efficient.
Barbaric,
it's not efficient. It is just a race to the bottom.
Tribal nonsense.
Well, hold on.
I don't understand.
Jonathan was agreeing with you on Cuba.
Melody. The police.
Andrew's trying to
because we screwed it up so bad.
Jonathan.
Constitutional rights.
Since
because
it's bad for
half of
Anders. Really, people on this panel, you must learn to form an opinion about these things. You couldn't do it on education.
Right.
Maybe we can do it on healthcare when we come back in a moment. The state of panic is where we come out no matter what. That's our time for today. We'll see if these Republican veterans have time left for the ultimate political prize. Thanks to our panelists, Todd Seavey, Anders Kaur, Heather Woodfield, Melody Brooks. I'm Jonathan Funk. Stick with BEN, where jobs come first. We'll see you next time on The Run.